Good evening, everybody. It's Fiona Hooper here again, and we're back with another edition of The Poetry of Painting, my regular weekly show where we talk about a painting and the poems that myself and my guest, more importantly, have written about the painting, because my guests are real poets and I'm very much a novice poet, but there we are. So it's my great pleasure this week to welcome back to the show my wonderful guest poet, Roz Ottery. So bear with me. Hi, Roz. How are you?
Hi. Nice to see you, Fiona.
And you. Now, just to let people know, we do have a slight issue with Roz's internet because they've had all the bad storms up there. So you have to bear with us if, and if you can't hear something, put a comment in the chat and just ask us to say it again. Feel free to make any other comments and ask us questions as normal. So thanks for being with us, whether you're watching live or on replay. And so there we go. Right. So the painting that we're going to talk about tonight, so we can get into the poetry bit of it, get this bit out of the way, is called Woodland Gold. I'm just going to add it to the stream. And this is oils on canvas. You can see it above my head, sort of there as well. So it's quite a large painting. It's 40 by 80 centimeters. And it's one that's, I've got some other trees either side of it. So you probably gather that I do rather like trees and forests. And I just love walking in forests, the sense of peace and calm. It seems to put everything into perspective a bit. And of course, they are so important for our planet. So hopefully if I can help raise awareness of forests or anything like that by my art and our poetry, then that's good with me. So that's that about the painting at the moment. So Roz, sort of over to you, what you felt about the painting, your poem, and yeah, take it away, Roz.
Well, as usual, Fiona, I with your painting, it's very happy to me. When I look at the painting, what I tend to do is put it on full screen and then just immerse myself in it. Mm-hmm. And I have, with this one, as I have with others, quite a strong emotional reaction. And so
we keep losing you a bit there, Roz.
In a sort of esoteric way. It isn't necessarily descriptive.
We're losing you a bit, Roz, unfortunately.
Sometimes, but this one was. This painting was utterly beautiful. I love.
Roz, I'm afraid we're not hearing. We're not hearing a lot of what you're saying, Roz. It's breaking up a lot.
So pretty.
Can you hear me, Roz? Oh dear. I am so dying to hear Roz's poem, and it seems no, we keep losing you, Roz.
Sure.
We keep losing
you. We as I said, we have had the storms.
No. Unfortunately, this is
repair the internet all day.
I can see you talking, Roz, but we can't hear you a lot of the time.
If you lose it all, you know.
I can hear you now, but you do keep disappearing on us, unfortunately.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
That's a shame. I wonder whether or not I ought to try and perhaps change devices. Can you?
No, you've gone again, Roz.
Hear me at all?
I can only hear very few words in little snatches.
I can see you're stopping and starting as well. So I think can I try and well, what I try and do is I try and change I can try and change devices, Fiona, see if that will work.
We've lost you.
Um,
Okay. All right,
second.
Roz. Okay. Try and come in on the other one first.
No. Can you hear me? I can hear you now.
All right. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Let's keep our fingers
now, what
crossed.
I'm going to do is. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I was saying I had a very strong emotional reaction to this painting. The colours and the way the painting is layered. You know, the trees in the foreground, the trees in the back, going into mist. All of it really gave me a very strong emotional reaction. And so my poem was descriptive, which is unusual for me. Usually I tag it onto something else, which is more to do with the emotion, but this was just descriptive. But I really enjoyed writing it, so I really hope that you enjoyed listening.
I'm sure we will. Thank you.
If you can hear me now, I will say the poem.
Yep.
So
lovely.
Autumn hues are alive in this forest, a patchwork of russet and gold, weaving warmth with the ambers and yellows, tasteful tapestry, stunning and bold. With comic suit the evergreens ply us, at the feet of ash-grey noble hosts, who invite looming brothers behind them, like pale shadows of slender cream ghosts. Oh, that carpet of orange astounds me, as does the contrast of powder blue skies. In nature, the forest in autumn plays music my soul amplifies.
Wow, that is so beautiful.
It really touched me. It was I've viewed this picture many times since I wrote the poem, wondering whether or not I ought to make the poem bigger. But it was succinct, and it was exactly how it affected me emotionally.
It says everything it needs to say, basically, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
I think so. I think it's a beautiful poem. I think you've outdone yourself with this one. It's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
It's a gorgeous,
thank you very much.
Gorgeous vista.
Thank you. Well, my poem is a bit longer than yours. It's based on my, not so much necessarily my reaction to the painting, but there again, the painting is a reaction to my walks in the woods and forests anyway. So it's based on both of those, I suppose, really. So here we go with mine. It's called Woodland Gold, not surprisingly. Ancient woods, mysterious and ethereal, draped in a soft and hazy blue miasma, evoking feelings of awe and excitement, yet full of the peace of the stately trees. At first apparently hushed and silent, yet alive with myriad small sounds of life, the crackling and rustling of movement as leaves are disturbed and settle again. Deer emerge from nowhere wraith-like, perfectly camouflaged with silent steps. They blend into the shadows and the mist, out of sight, but watching all the while. Squirrels climb the smooth grey trunks, searching out their concealed larders, supplies carefully secreted and buried, providing sustenance for leaner times. Brushing through the rustling bracken, wandering quietly, delightfully lost, in this enchanted place it's easy to believe that fairies store their woodland gold. So that's my one. Somewhat different from yours, Roz. But, oh, can you hear us, Roz? Oh, seem to have lost Roz again. Are you hearing us, Roz? Oh, it's such a shame, because it's always wonderful talking with Roz. She's a really good poet, writes beautiful poetry, and just great to have a chat with. But I think it's just their internet at the moment after these storms is just making it almost impossible. But can you hear me, Roz? No, I can see you smiling, but I can't hear anything. Can you hear me? No. Oh dear. I don't think this is working too well tonight. So I'm really sorry, folks, that you're not hearing anything more from Roz, because she's such a good poet and such a lovely person. And we always have a fantastic chat, and it's absolutely fascinating. But I think what I'll have to do is to get Roz back on the show another time. And oh, I can see you
Until the
moving,
very
Roz.
end.
Oh, now I can hear you.
I heard right up until the end. Yeah, I could hear most.
No, it's not really working, unfortunately. So I think we'll just have to get you back on.
The link is a bit such a shame, really. I heard it's not.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, folks, that you're not getting more of Roz. Oh, hang on, is she back?
I am.
Oh, you're back.
I am.
And I can hear you.
Well, what I've done is, luckily, I was able to change devices. So, because I think that what's happening is that this is plugged into the system, whereas my phone has got a very different system. So I'm on my phone now, so it's much easier.
Oh, it sounds much better. We can see you, we can hear you. And I was just apologizing to everyone and saying we'll get you back on. But no, we've got you, which is excellent news. So
I heard your poem right up to the end. I didn't hear the last two lines of your poem, Fiona.
Okay. In this enchanted place, it's easy to believe that fairies store their woodland gold. So those were my two last lines.
Beautiful.
I just love woods. Well, I've already said that, I know, tonight, but I do. I just think, as well with fractals in nature, which is the patterns made, repeating patterns made by leaves, by the tracery of branches and things like that. They have been scientifically proved to reduce stress, and maybe that's what does it for me. It's just, but it's also the smells of a wood, in a forest. It's just got its own smells, hasn't it? Which is just amazing. So,
when I was growing up, I was in a reasonably big family and the youngest of 5. And from the earliest age, because I was, in those days, we're talking about the 50s, you were allowed out to play very young. And I probably 4 or 5. I used to go. We lived very close to a wood, and from the earliest age, I used to go and climb trees in the woods. Some of them very small to begin with, and then gradually, as I got older, I used to climb to the top of the big ones. But I've always had an affinity for trees because of that. They used to comfort me. I actually felt very close to them. I probably was one of the original tree huggers, I think.
And why not?
But I think that's why the picture evoked such a strong response. It was a very emotional response for me, because I just thought it was the depth and the way the picture draws you into the trees and into the background and then into the mist. And it's almost like a mysterious part of it, which is, of course, reflected in your poem.
Yeah. Oh, magic. Well, I'm glad it did give you an emotional response. I mean, that's, to me, that if a painting can do that, it's successful, because yes, there are pretty pictures, but a painting that somebody feels something when they look at it is to me, far more powerful. And, you know, they're going to want to keep looking at it every day because it does give them that response, you know, rather than just a pretty painting on the wall sort of thing. So,
Well, I think
oh,
if
thank you.
you can't live amongst the real thing, then perhaps the next
Mm,
best thing is to have a painting. I mean, even a photo, it doesn't do as much. I think because when you're painting, I honestly do think that heart and soul goes into that the same as poetry. So,
mm,
so it probably is the fact that the brush strokes and the way you lovingly do that, I think comes across in the painting.
oh, thank you. Yes. Well, it is. I mean, painting, doing any painting, it is taking something from the artist and putting it into that work. It's, you know, it's not painting by numbers. It does take, you know, something of the artist's soul with it. And yeah, I believe that, really believe that. And which is why it's so satisfying for me to be an artist and to paint, because I'm creating these things to hopefully give other people pleasure the same way that, you know, the experiences have given me pleasure as well. So
And I think
yeah.
combining that with words, combining that, and you know, you could add a third dimension at some point in the future, maybe some music to go with the words at the same time as you're looking at the photo, the picture. You actually,
Mm,
there's so much that can be um, sort of elicited from all of this. Really, it's
yes.
I get such a joy out of writing a poem with when it's something beautiful that you really want to commune with anyway.
Mm.
And I think your paintings do that. I'm always very impressed.
Oh, thank you. And I'm always very overawed by your poetry as well. It's you've always done fantastic poems for me about my paintings, which I consider to be a privilege with all my poets who've written poems about my paintings as well. I do feel it's such a privilege to have you do that. And I'm very grateful to you all. And I've made some wonderful friends and heard some wonderful poetry. So thank you, Roz. That's and to all the other poets that have been on the show as well, of course. So if you're listening, thank you. So Roz, how are things with you? Have you been managing to do any shows, poetry shows or anything recently?
No, the unfortunately the dreaded COVID
Mm,
has diminished all of the outgoing. I've done some Zoom work, but really up here, I've got close neighbours that have fallen ill with COVID, and because we were in
oh,
contact with them, it meant that we had to be out of circulation for a while. And then, lo and behold, some children at the school, because we look after our great grandson, and some children at the school had it. So that was another lockdown. I just feel like it's going on
oh
forever.
dear. Yes, yes. Oh my
So
goodness.
not much out there to do at the minute, but you know, I'm planning it because the school have agreed to help Yvonne and I perhaps do something with some environmental poetry. So the children are going to hopefully write some poems to. We're going to go in there and do some poetry, and then
Yeah.
they will try and elicit responses from the children on what they've heard and their own version of it, really, and then perhaps
Okay.
amalgamate that in some kind of performance, or even maybe an anthology or whatever at the end of it. So that would be very exciting if that comes off. I hope it does.
Yes, that'd be marvelous. Yes, you know, to get the different perspectives as well
Yeah.
from, you know, not just adults who, you know, with a lot more experience and knowledge about the environment and what's happening, but the children as well. So seeing it through their eyes.
Sometimes the children are very astute because they haven't got the sort of jaded eye that we have. As you grow up, there's so much that impinges on your consciousness, and you hardly know that. Children are much
Mm,
purer in what they see and feel, and
mm,
I'm really excited to think about that with the environment being the subject. They've done some work on the environment, on other things, on recycling, etc., etc., at school. So it's not as if they won't be used to that. It would be very interesting to see how they reacted to some of your paintings, Fiona, because it's quite an interesting thing how they see things, much purer
Yes.
than adults do.
Yeah. Or maybe there's a collaboration in the offing there as well then, or something.
Yeah,
So that would be really exciting having them involved as well.
it would.
Wow.
It really would.
It's, I think I've almost got enough material ready for the book now, the famous
Excellent.
book that. So I need to start thinking about how to organise that soon as well, and how to get it published and everything else. So that is really exciting.
Yeah.
Yes, it's my art, but it's wonderful poetry from all of my guests as well, which is just amazing. So looking forward to that. And yeah, apart from that, we've been back doing Kingston since July. We're still there at the moment, hoping that COVID isn't going to put a spanner in those works. We have enough with the weather doing that sometimes without COVID getting in the way, but we are outdoors, we're completely outside, so it's not as though we're in an indoor environment that gets crowded at all. We can distance quite nicely there, so
That's
hopefully it'll carry on. That'd be good.
Is it busy down there, Fiona? Is it busy?
It's got busier, although last time, because we're due to be there this coming Saturday, so it was 2 weeks ago this coming Saturday, it wasn't quite so busy that day, but it had gone a bit colder. But it's probably not as busy as before COVID, but it has been quite busy, to be honest. Yes. But it's quite a big wide pedestrian street where we are. It's not as though people are crammed into narrow little passageways or onto pathways with traffic in the middle. There is a lot of space there, so yeah, it's quite good. And hopefully people will be wearing their masks in the shops and things as they're supposed to again.
Yes, well, that's certainly happening up here.
Yeah, and definitely on public transport down here, people are wearing their masks more the last couple of days. I think it had got to a stage where you're definitely in the minority wearing a mask on public transport, but that's definitely changed, which is good news. Because it's not even to protect ourselves as much as it is to protect others, and respecting others and not wanting to infect them because you can have it with no symptoms, of course. So
yeah.
I think it's good for all of us to do that. Yeah, we don't want to wear masks, but it's not exactly onerous and it's not painful or anything. So I think we should all just get on and do it, really. But
well, I keep thinking what would happen if I became ill, and I just suddenly thought, well, I've always got my poetry. I can always do something like that while I'm ill, can't I?
Yes. Although some people, well, hopefully, I'm touching wood, none of us will actually get COVID. But I think sometimes you wouldn't feel like doing anything if you had it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's people that say it exhausts you. So yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think it does, and it lingers. Maybe not being infectious or anything, but the after effects of it, I think, can go on for months.
Yeah.
Of being tired But I guess there are lots of stories out there, different people it's had different effects on, and yeah, we just have our jabs and do the best we can, really, but because it's not going to go away, is it?
100 miles away from this really serene and very beautiful forest. It's almost crazy. We do sort of act a bit like ants sometimes, don't we? Scurrying everywhere. Whereas really, the reality is that nature probably has quite a one-up on us from the fact that it's just, I guess, more elongated in life. I suppose our lives are pretty pretty quick compared to a tree.
Yes, yes, and it's just a better way of life, a calmer,
Yep.
slower way of life for most of nature. Anyway, I mean, not everything, obviously, but and obviously it can be tough for some animals as well. But it, I think our life is so artificial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, as a personal opinion, that that we have become disconnected from
Mm,
nature, and
yes.
we don't understand nature in the way that I think that perhaps we were intended to understand it,
Mm,
because I get an emotional response just from your paintings. If I'm in nature, if I'm in the forest, that emotional response is probably amplified. But on the other hand, it probably isn't as amplified as it would be if I'd have been born in the forest, like a Native American. In the Native Indian in America, they
mm,
used to thank things that they killed for food. They used to, all of that respect for nature was inherent in their culture.
mm, mm. And also the cycle of life, where things were returned to the earth and not just it wasn't just taking from the earth all the time and then creating things that the earth can't use again, like plastic. It was much more considered, and the old farming methods. Now I know with populations these days it wouldn't work, I'm sure, but they used to have a set number of fields. One would be used for one purpose, another for a different one, and so on. And then next year or a couple of years, whatever, they'd rotate it, so they'd rotate the crops and not, just wear out the goodness from the soil with just using the same crop over and over again. And then having to use artificial fertilizers and things, which have caused their own set of horrendous problems as well.
Yeah, I
So,
think the Industrial Revolution probably put paid to a lot of things that perhaps were
mm,
inherent in the way that we treated nature. And I
yes.
don't, a lot of what happens perhaps is forcing us to look at that and see whether or not we can do something about it. I hope so, anyway.
Before it's too late.
Yeah,
Yes. And
absolutely.
there's a lot of really good initiatives out there now. So, I think I'm hoping that it's gathering momentum and that it'll start to sort of snowball and just everybody, will get so many more people, working towards that end that, get everybody on board as far as we can.
Well, when I do quite a lot of environmental poetry things, and when I use poetry to remind people about nature in general, it's usually something, and people know about it, but I guess that our lives are so busy, we sometimes just forget to remember and to sort of take stock of where we are.
Mm,
And the same with your paintings, really, in that you are painting something that gets an emotional response from somebody, which makes them think how beautiful it is, and maybe not to throw that litter, or not to, it makes a difference. And
yeah.
my poems is about, what do you do for the environment? And the first line of the poem says, I write environmental poetry. And then it's a sort of an answer and response poem in which there's somebody throws their eyes up to the ceiling and says, well, what's that got to do with it? But sometimes you have to reach someone's heart. And sometimes painting and words and weaving words and those things reach someone's heart much better than some kind of edict or law or pointing finger where somebody is saying you must or you should or you ought.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
And I think if we can get people wanting to do these things, it's going to work so much better than trying to force people to do it.
and there's no better way than art in really because I think
Mm.
art very often are the echo of something that we all know deep in our soul, really.
Mm. Yes, yes. Well, let's hope that your poetry, my paintings, and all the other art out there that, hopefully can raise awareness, contribute to people's happiness,
Yeah.
contribute to hopefully helping to save this planet for future generations. You know, I think there's been a lot of, oh, we're okay, but, you know, future generations, they're going to suffer if we don't do something very drastic about it very soon. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Indeed.
That we can effect some change, however small it might be, for the better. So, yeah. Well, I'm glad we got you back on again, Roz.
Sorry, I should have done this in the first place. Of course, the internet that comes into the house, which is the one that was disturbed by all the storm, is very different to the one on my phone, which is attached to the phone. They're different. They're different. And this one always seems to work better. So I'll remember that for next time if there are any problems in the area.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad we got you back, because I really wanted to have a chat with you, and it's always such a pleasure. Really enjoy it. And thank you again for being on the show and reading your wonderful poem. And as I normally ask, hopefully you will allow me to post your poem with the painting in due course.
Yes.
For people to read as well. So thank you so much, Roz. Really enjoyed it. Shame about the technology, but it's sent to try us. So we plow on. We get there in the end.
We do indeed, Fiona.
Lovely. Well, that's it for this week again, unfortunately. I could stay and chat to Roz for another half an hour at least. I'm sure it would seem like about 10 minutes, if that. But it's been fantastic having you on, Roz, in spite of the problems. And I hope that you will come back and join me again sometime in the show very soon.
Absolutely.
And I hope everyone else will be able to join me again for next week's show, which will be on the 8th of December, Wednesday, 7 p.m. UK time, live here on Facebook with another super poetry guest. So stay safe, everybody. Have a jolly good week. Stay warm and dry. And it's bye now from Roz and myself.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming on. Bye.